In April 2005, Manchester United faced Newcastle United at Old Trafford, in a game that felt like it had little significance. Man United were pretty much guaranteed a Champions League spot, and had seen Chelsea run away at the top of the table, soon to be crowned champions under Jose Mourinho for the first time. It was a frustrating game for the Red Devils, who trailed the Magpies 1-0 with little over 30 minutes to go. That day, a 19-year-old Wayne Rooney was fuming. He was pissed off at his side's inability to keep pace with Chelsea in the title race, and also see Arsenal recently leapfrog United in the table. He also thought the ref that day had a shocker, and things reached boiling point for Rooney as he clocked that teammate Kleberson was being ready to replace him. So he thought before he goes off, he's going to tell the ref exactly what he thought of the officiating. And as the ball entered play again, Rooney was more concerned with letting the ref know what was on his mind. He felt more outrage build up in him as the ref just shrugged it off. And as he finished his complaining, he saw the ball pop up perfectly and decided to do this.
Ready! Well, if that's what he does when he's injured, watch out when he's 100%.
This was a world-class goal fueled completely by anger. Anger is often a misunderstood emotion due to its negative reputation and the common perception that it should be suppressed or avoided. As time has gone on in sport, anger has been seen as something overwhelmingly negative. Commentators like to take shots at people who have lost their cool or blown up. And yes, in many situations, anger can be negative and destructive. But in that moment at Old Trafford and on countless other occasions throughout his career, Wayne Rooney showed that anger can be a powerful tool in sport, if used correctly. And there are three main benefits I believe anger can have for any performer. You just have to learn how to channel it in the right way. The first main benefit is the one that Rooney experienced, and that is heightening your focus. Now you might be thinking, wait, Rooney wasn't actually paying attention to the game when he was complaining to the ref. And yes, you'd be right. But if we look at the actual physiology of anger, what we see is that it actually increases your general focus moment to moment. And that's why Rooney was able to instantly lock onto the ball and thump it into the top corner. Studies have shown that if you prime people to be angry just before a focus-based task, then they can significantly show higher levels of focus and concentration compared to people who are not primed with anger. And what this suggests is that when channeled appropriately, anger can increase an individual's ability to concentrate and direct their attention towards a specific objective. Because when you're angry, you experience a heightened state of alertness and arousal. If we look back to our ancestors, anger had an evolutionary benefit because it would allow us to fight off other tribes that may invade our community, and also let us show the vigilance necessary to ward off predators. So for Rooney, in expressing his anger at the ref, he was actually beginning to channel this pent-up energy that had been building up inside him. He had gone from simple frustration, which often leads us to just getting annoyed at things in our own head, to actual aggression, which lets us express and get out those feelings through our behaviour. And this meant that by the time the ball fell to him, Rooney was in a peak state of arousal to laser focus on the ball and instinctively use his angry energy to smash it with perfect form and power. Now, just a quick note, the only thing I disagree with here is Rooney taking his anger out initially on the ref. People in sport need to stop doing this full stop. Just don't be a dick to refs. I know it doesn't always seem this way, but at the end of the day, they're just there doing you a favour. It's actually far better to use that frustration in more productive ways that doesn't involve abusing others. And to better understand this, let's talk about Michael Jordan. In a 1993 regular season game, MJ's Chicago Bulls faced off against the Washington Bullets. During that game, LeBradford Smith, a relatively unknown player, had a performance of a lifetime. That night, it was his night. It seemed that everything he touched turned into a bucket. And he ended up scoring 37 points and for the majority of the game kept Jordan in his pocket. MJ just couldn't buy a bucket that night. And then after the game, Smith supposedly said to Jordan, "Nice game, Mike." Those three simple words were enough to cause Jordan to feel a burning rage creep up inside him. He thought, how dare this nobody try to humiliate me like that? And it was in that moment that we best see the perfect embodiment of the Michael Jordan I took it personally meme. Fortunately for Jordan, the very next day, the two sides were actually meeting again. And he said to his teammates, "I'm going after that kid tonight." Throughout the game, Jordan actively sought up to match up with Smith every play. And by halftime, Jordan had scored 36 points. In this moment, Michael Jordan showed the second way of using anger effectively, and that is to increase effort. Anger is an important emotion to feel because it signals to you that something is either going or has gone in a way that you didn't intend. And the benefit of feeling anger in those moments is that it shows you care. And if you really do care about something deep down, then you're going to do everything in your power to make it right. Now again, you have to be careful in not allowing that anger to turn into blind rage. Rage is uncontrolled, it's undirected, and it often just makes things worse. Michael Jordan could have experienced rage when Smith told him "nice game, Mike," and he could have uncontrollably swung for him. But if he did that, he would have got a lengthy suspension and just embarrassed himself. So instead he used his anger deliberately and carefully. He used it to elevate himself the next night to give everything he could to getting the best of Smith in every play that game. Anger is a motivator at the end of the day because it fuels action, either to move away from undesirable states such as losing or failing, or instead moving towards desirable states such as winning and becoming a champion. And if you watch the Last Dance series, you'll know that Michael Jordan throughout his career took a lot of shit personally. Whether it was another team purposely trying to hurt him when fouling him, or when other players won the MVP award. MJ just didn't shrug it off and think, oh well. He thought, they're going to pay. They're going to wish they didn't mess with me. And because he felt that way, it compelled him to train and work on his game to a level that other pros found ridiculous. He was a man possessed every day in the gym and every night on the court. And a lot of those world-class performances he put on throughout his career were fueled entirely by anger. So we've spoken about a couple of things that can help you specifically with your game when it comes to anger. But arguably the biggest benefit of anger actually comes from the impact that it has on others. Now, to help me explain what I'm getting at here, let's talk about Mike Tyson. Iron Mike was one of the greatest heavyweight boxers in the world. He was at times a literal animal in the ring. Out of his 50 wins, 44 were by knockout, some of which were the most brutal seen in boxing history. But despite what he did in the ring, Tyson actually knew that he would win most of his fights before a single punch was thrown. And the reason for this was because of his demeanor. The persona of Iron Mike Tyson was one of a very angry man. He walked around with a permanent scowl on his face and was known to be a violent man. And although this caused him to do some terrible things in his personal life, his anger was a huge advantage in his sport. The reason for this was because his opponents were scared shitless of it. Tyson knew that he could use his angry personality to intimidate his opponents. The stare downs he gave would send shivers down the spine of even the toughest boxers. He knew how to beat the majority of opponents psychologically before they even stepped in the ring with him. But the interesting thing was that after his career, Tyson admitted that he too was fearful of his opponents. He would have dreams of them beating him and what they were capable of doing to him. But to crush that fear he had, he would start channeling his anger. He would tap into a darker side of himself that wanted to dominate and destroy someone who could cause him serious harm. From this, it's clear that anger can be incredibly useful to gain an advantage over your opposition. We see time and time again, often the team that loses is the one that psychologically collapses. The ones who can't handle the pressure and are just not up for it. And anger is an incredibly useful tool to maintain psychological control over any sports event. It signals to everyone else that you mean business and that you're going to be a problem. And the second they show doubt in being able to handle you, then you're already halfway to winning. Now, there's a fine line between using anger productively in sport to intimidate your opponents, while still also maintaining integrity and sportsmanship. To learn how to do this better, check out this next video here.